Hey everybody, I'm Adam Teeter, one of the co-founders of VinePair, and this is Tapping into Culture, our bi-weekly conversation series sponsored by Sixpoint Beer about all things beer and culture. Today we're really pumped to be talking about beer can design and sort of everything that goes into that. And for this conversation, we're going to have VinePair's own art director, Danielle Grinberg, lead the conversation. Danielle, what's up?
Hey, Adam, how are you?
Good. So, as our resident designer, I felt like you're way more qualified to lead this combo than me. So I'm going to let you take it from here, introduce the guys, and then go from there.
Totally. Thanks, Adam.
Of course.
Hey, guys. So I'm really excited to introduce Bobby Zwahlen and Jack Liakas, who are both designers and illustrators for Sixpoint and Victory Brewing. What's up, guys?
How we doing?
How you doing? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Cool. So I'm really excited to talk today. I feel like when a lot of people think about graphic design, all the different avenues you can go into, beer can design isn't, I would say, the conventional route. So I think a really great question to start this off is how the both of you got into this category of design.
Yeah, I mean, I can kick it off here, specifically because it's kind of it is a specific and weird area to be targeted in, and it's actually kind of the best of both worlds, I've always thought, because it's beer, which is one of my loves, and it's design, and it's combining both of them into one thing. And it's just kind of like this magical place, So I went to school in Brooklyn at Pratt Institute. Sixpoint had just kind of launched their can designs at that point. They're very, very early stages. So I would see them in the delis and bodegas and started really getting into it. They were like one of the breweries in that time, back in like 2011, who really, I could tell, put a lot of time and effort into their can designs. And, the previous and original designer from that world was Nate Garn. He was the one who was the original designer before I jumped in. So, I kind of managed to sneak my way in after college, found, the posting and it worked out perfectly. So yeah, here I am now.
Awesome.
Yeah, my name's Bobby. I'm a senior designer at Victory Brewing, kind of Jack's counterpart for the Victory brand. Downingtown native, it's important to bring up because that's where Victory conceived and original tap room and production facilities in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. So known about Victory all my life. However, didn't really know what craft beer meant until I grew up and kind of graduated school and trying to figure out what kind of industry I wanted to work in. So it was a great kind of the prodigal son returns and a job opened up, and I was fortunate to get it. I studied graphic design at Drexel University in Philadelphia. Right after school, moved out to San Francisco, where I kind of started my graphic design career and earned my chops working in the apparel graphics industry for a small company in Oakland. And then I made my way back to the area via New York, did a stint in New York for a year, back to Philadelphia, and now reside in a kind of cool college town in Westchester, only about 15 minutes from the original brewery in Downingtown.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess that kind of brings up an interesting question for you, Jack. So since you said you came in after a previous designer, was there kind of like an established style or design aesthetic for Sixpoint that you kind of followed suit, or you kind of created your own when you took over?
Yeah, well, there definitely was a really fine, established style when I came in. So that was one of the things that I really liked about Sixpoint. They had a very unique style for the craft beer space. For people who are familiar, I think you can kind of get the idea. It's very like modern. It's got this very unique kind of space that doesn't really exist outside of us. We're taking a lot of things like old. It's a mixture of old and new. It's old woodcut kind of stylizations of the word mark, and then it's the very geometric shape of the badge on our cans. So super unique, but like anybody who jumps in and has the opportunity to take over the brand, I always obviously wanted to kind of give it my own spin. So it's what I've really brought to the table in my time is bringing a lot more like hand-drawn illustration into the brand. So when previously, you know, it was very simplistic and, you know, much more color oriented, color blocking, that kind of thing. Like I've brought in a lot more illustration and bold kind of graphics to the forefront.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that as a trend, not even just in beer can design, but ever. I mean, we at VinePair love to use illustration in a lot of our editorial stuff. So it's really cool to see all the different mediums that can go to.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So the next thing I was thinking of talking about is the design process. So if you guys can just like take us through how you come up with that idea. Does the beer come to you first, like the flavor, or do you start off and then how do we get to the can on the shelf?
You want to lead that one? I can jump in. I just answered one.
Yeah, I'll go. All right. So I guess what we kind of have to start with, you know, each brand that we work for has a brand team, and you know, we have a lot of internal process. You know, everyone has so many ideas of what beers they should make. However, you know, to get this kind of synergy with the brewers and the brand team is, you know, we really want to answer one important question is, you know, why do we even want to put this liquid out in the market? What purpose is it going to serve? You know, is it going to sell in this, you know, climate of 7,000 plus craft breweries? You know, how can we stay on the shelves and how can we connect to the consumer in our way? So it starts off with the brand team, you know, kind of formulating a checklist of, you know, what demographic is this going to serve? What kind of style is it? That's definitely another important, you know, we can come out with a bunch of IPAs over and over again, but, you know, the market right now is, you know, everyone loves variety. So we want to touch those points as well. And then, you know, once that gets approved through kind of our stage gate internal process, you know, then it gets kicked to us and we work with the brand team, we work with the brewers to kind of formulate what the thematic is, what the motifs are, what does this look like, and how is it going to connect to the consumer.
Cool. And so do you guys have teams that you work with, or is it really just you individually leading the artistic direction?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely us leading the creative. However, there's definitely a lot of input from different departments to, you know, kind of inject into what needs to be, you know, what information actually needs to be on the can.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And then I guess, you know, getting into the nitty gritty stuff, just our personal process, you know, I feel like it's, you know, it's very similar to a lot of industries and a lot of fields in the creative world. You know, it's just research, you know, mood boards to really get that vibe and the thematic down for what this is going to look like. And then we can kind of take it through many rounds. Me personally, we try to stick to about 3 rounds with like another, you know, round just to get everything squared away and make sure we're all kind of, definitely the round to tweak out on things and make sure that, you know, that angle's at the perfect angle or that point comes to the perfect point and everything's, you know, everything looks good to the eye.
Yeah, I'll jump in there too, just like from the 6-point side of things, because, you know, we all are working in a similar environment in some ways, but, you know, there's a lot that we still, I think, you know, we still have some differences in just in the background. So, you know, one of my favorite things about how we create beers on our end and is kind of just the original conversation. And Bobby touched to this too, like in this process where we get together with the brewers, we get together with, you know, the marketing team, where we can kind of put our heads together and really start riffing on the beer. And that's everything from, you know, the style, then like the background of where it came from, you know, pulling on similar kind of ideas of like, what ingredients are in there and like what do those ingredients bring to your mind, stuff like just creating a story. You know, you kind of you're thinking of what the beer is going to taste like and smell like and be before you even bring a style into the category. You know, you're like, you have this idea in your mind and then you kind of work backwards, and with that story you can really create a lot of fun and interesting things just from a visual perspective. Like an example, just off the top of my head, it was a recent, you know, small batch beer that we did. It was the concept turned out to be a riff on a cocktail. So we were like, what would a beer taste like if we were trying to get it to taste like a cocktail? and the cocktail that we chose is a French 75. So really, really, awesome cocktail. Came, like already brings to mind from some French Parisian cafes. That was like the stuff floating around our head. And then we went into the liquid side where it's like, it's made with champagne. So we're like, how do we create this effervescence of champagne in the flavor? And then, the cocktail also has a cherry as part of the topping. So we're like, okay, we got to have some kind of cherry component. And with kind of creating that process, we really were able to do something really unique and cool and create like a really exciting beer that, came from outside of the normal beer scope.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like this process isn't always super linear, kind of like everything coincides with each other. Like I feel like craft beer just has some of the coolest names sometimes for their beers, like really outlandish stuff. So does that kind of coincide with the label art and the branding?
Yeah, definitely.
Let me jump into that, because I think that is the hardest part of the process is naming a beer. You can do your own little exercise and come up with a cool name for an IPA, and I guarantee you, if you pop it into Google, whatever that name is with a IPA, it's going to already be taken.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot out there. There's a lot. Yeah.
But so what do you guys do if that happens? Like you're really struggling to find a unique name.
Well, yeah, it takes a lot of brainstorming. And one of the things that we have on the background that we just like randomly, when we'll be riffing about beers, randomly, a beer name will pop into our heads, and it may not be the one that we're looking for, but we keep that in like a bank. We like make sure we have this doc, and it's like a running list of names. And we're like, that would be a great beer name. That would be a great name. You just like keep it in the background so you have something on the docket, so you can pull from it, because there's a lot out there, but it's just one of the fun creative parts of the beer process, and everybody's involved there too, which is great. Like it doesn't always just come from one person too. We try to keep it as open as we can. That's why I think it also makes it exciting and fun.
Cool. Yeah, it seems like a lot of collaboration's a part of that. So how long does it typically take from the whole like idea, beer style, name conception to actually getting this on the shelf and in the hands of consumers?
I could give you like the technical answer is we have, kind of a work back process built out, and it's 7 weeks, from when we got the final liquid to the beer name to actual design process. We go off of a kind of a 7-week design period. However, we have to work with vendors that really kind of, we're in their world when it comes to getting the, the hard goods of, the can and the secondary packaging produced. So, a lead time at Ball to get a can could be, anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks on a certain, say a regular standard 12-ounce can, to maybe if you're doing a 16-ounce can, it could be, anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks. So we definitely have to, have an airtight work back to kind of actually get the product on shelves and into our production facilities.
Yeah, I was going to say that, and that sometimes just changes. Sometimes those days get slashed off, like you're working with a lot tighter timeline, but that's just, that's kind of the way it goes. But we use 2 different facilities where we actually print our cans. So we use Ball. I mean, there really is only 2 can producers for one thing. That's kind of something that maybe everybody's not familiar with. But the 2 facilities that are producing cans, 2 companies, is Ball and then Crown Wrexham, and then they pretty much control the can market. So they're working with companies like Budweiser, Coca-Cola, who, when you're trying to get in we're a small craft brewery, we're trying to get in time to produce, and they have these other companies that are breathing down their neck to take up the production time. So it's a really big logistical, lot of hoops to jump through on the back end. So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And that kind of brings something up. Like, do you guys have your beer calendars planned in advance? Like, I'm sure you're going to do like your seasonal releases, like summer, Christmas type beers, that type of thing. Do you almost like plan the visual identity for those way to advance, or is it still kind of on that like 7 to 10 week timeline for each individual beer?
I would say we definitely have, we do plan out about half a year in advance. The market's changing so much sometimes that things are very fluid, where we have to kind of, pivot and do something different. However, what we would normally get on written in stone is definitely the style for sure, and what we actually want to make. And then that kind of dictates kind of our thought process for, the actual design work.
Cool. All right. So I guess something that's probably interesting to talk about is this year in particular. I'm sure it's affected like production timelines, and maybe what you guys were planning to put out at the beginning of the year is not what ended up happening. So do you want to maybe touch on how COVID-19 has affected the design process and all of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think I was touching on like earlier when we were working with some altered timelines.
Yeah,
we were definitely working with some really tight timelines. Kind of in the beginning of the year, where we had this like fast track products to kind of get them out. Obviously a lot of just the main issue was all of our production in one, basically in the blink of an eye, went from bars to to stores, and like big box stores. It's like the bars situation has just been decimated, which is horrible. So we had to really pivot and kind of change our business model around in like I said, like a blink of an eye. It's crazy. So much of your time and energy goes into the canned product, and the kegs, right now it's starting to build back, which is nice. But it really you have to focus everything on that. And there's, and the result of that is can shortages. So that's what is happening right now. There's a lot of can shortages happening just across the country because everybody went that direction. Cans in general become, they're much more popular these days than bottles. So that's one thing that's been, in the back of our mind, especially going into 2021, is how do we deal with this if we can't get this, that's the one thing that we need to be able to package our product. So that's what's one like major thing that has been brought up just from this whole kind of it stemmed from, the pandemic for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of the, roadblocks that we saw on the Victory side was not so much with the actual beer product, like Jack alluded to, if you can't get it on premise at bars and in our tap rooms, you're going to the grocery store now. And what we saw is, the whole pantry loading, aspect was real. And we were selling a lot of beers, but we were selling a lot of big pack types, like 15 packs and 12 packs and variety packs, that we saw a lot of good numbers building with people pantry loading. And then the other factor was, okay, we have this brand, but behind the scenes, we're also building up a whole year-long campaign that alludes to this brand. And one instance on the Southern Tier Brewing Company side was we had a whole year campaign, and the tagline was "Gather Here." So, well, we can't have "Gather Here" when no one's gathering here, and everyone's scared of COVID. So, we had all these assets built out, and we had in a blink of an eye, like Jack mentioned, we had to change it. We had to come up with a new campaign tagline, and we had to reform the composition and, turn that around in a matter of days, as versus building out the original campaign, when we had months to build it out.
Right. Yeah. Even just like how you generally talk about it, how you market the beer in general. Like there's so many things that are the classic ways you talk about beer, like drinking with your friends and hanging out and partying in big groups, and like that all of a sudden was like, oh no, you can't say that, that's bad stuff. So it's like you kind of have to like trick your brain into, or like open up a whole new way to market towards drinking by yourself. Is all of a sudden now it's fun. Like it's great. Like drinking alone's fun, it's cool. So like that became kind of another like segment where you would never have normally thought about it that way. But you gotta be quick and stay creative and have fun with it. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
everyone's bubble shrank, so we had to kind of reflect that in our, our point of sales material, especially when you're at a grocery store.
totally. I feel like it's been a big challenge for almost every product out there, but specifically alcohol and beer even, which I feel like is just probably the most social uh, product in the industry. So it's
Yeah.
great that you guys were able to like tackle that.
Yeah, and going back and talking about we kind of formalize these the creative, and I think that at the root I think the experiences plays a very important part into kind of capturing the vibe, and even just selling the beer we have to sell beer, but we also have to sell an experience too.
Definitely. Um, I guess I have a fun question. I would just like to know what's your favorite label that both of you have created? What's like the story behind that?
Jack, I think we have some slides some
Yeah.
visuals we can touch on
Yeah,
this.
Yeah, we
let's
definitely
show.
do. We could kind of use that as maybe that's a good segue into showing some individual work, and we can kind of talk through a little bit briefly just between both of us. Okay, great. So I think this this kind of perfectly ties in with your question, Danielle. This is just a little glimpse of a mixture of process, and it is also it happens to be one of my favorite labels that I've done. So it kind of shows off like the more illustrative side of things that I bring into the equation for Sixpoint. So this is for our hazy IPA called Hootie. And we originally brewed this beer about, I think it was like 2 years ago now. And just to go through the process here, with everything in my design process, I really like to get pen on the paper and just really get, sketching, put stuff together on that, just like pen and paper, old school style. So, I was really, during this particular time, really influenced by a lot of like tattoo artwork, traditional kind of tattoo artwork, which, one of my favorite kind of segments of, I love to pull from a lot of inspiration from there. So we have the original illustration from my sketchbook here on the left, which
That's so intricate.
yeah, this is one of those weird moments where it kind of just, we had the name before anything. The name was Hootie, and that came from our original founder from Sixpoint, Shane Welch, and there's definitely a weed reference in there. So we like many things that come from Sixpoint, but the Hootie was a obvious tie-in, like to think about where do we go with this direction of this beer, and an owl just was, it was kind of a no-brainer. It was perfect kind of combination. And so I really delved into that. And this really happened. Like I had this kind of concept, and I just sat down and just, it was one of those rare moments where I actually just banged this out like in one sitting, and it kind of just came to me. So it doesn't necessarily always happen that way, but it turned into this pretty fun brand for us, because it went from being this very small batch beer, which, we see here in the middle. This is the label that we made for when we were doing our small batch program, which is all beers that, very, very small drops. It's where we do a lot of our innovation. And then, going over to the actual can over here. And then, that eventually turned into, okay, maybe this beer is something that a lot of people are really into. Like we're getting a lot of positive feedback about it. Okay, what are we going to do now? Like, how do we take this next? So we ended up canning it in 16-ounce 4-packs, which is, the brand down here, which, that transition from, we did a label on the actual can up here, which is really common in a lot of like the small batch world. We transitioned to the actual print on 4-pack can in the bottom left. And then from there, as we continued to grow the brand, we brought it into our 6-packs, which is kind of the most common format that you see for us out in the wild. So you can see that, the design changed in that process. Is all just part of the whole situation. But I had to, due to our, we have this badge that we work with in all of our packaging. So I had to think about how we could change the design to still have a similar feel, and then still look like our national release beer. So one way that we did that was we kept that original illustration on the side of the package to, pay homage to that. So that's just like a quick little breakdown of one beer that, I really enjoyed that came out. I could keep
Yeah,
going through this, or
cool.
I can go back to, Bob, if you want to take over and show one of your beers too, or however you guys want to do it.
Yeah, let me go, because I have some similar points, kind of
Cool.
how you built this up as well.
Yep.
Let me get my guy on here.
Yeah, you got a good breakdown.
All right, so can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. We're looking at this is a program Victory standardized I think last year, and this is our limited release series. So this is kind of outside our convention of our core line that you'll see if you look up Victory, you'll see this really nice large baby blue banner with the Victory name in it, and that's our main branding convention through the core. However, what I wanted to do for this program was kind of build this up and really own a lot of the creative. I kind of consider this our art can, and that was more instead of a hierarchy of branding, is more letting the creative do a little bit more of the legwork for us. And this was a big regional play for us since we're based in the Philadelphia area. Liberty Bell Ringer was we've had the copyright to this name, and it's such a powerful name, especially relating to the area and that regional play. So we had initially, it was just a draft only release, and it was a big beer, double dry hop, double IPA. So when we kind of wanted to rebrand this to get a little bit more excitement around this, I know I definitely had to come correct, since we are in the Philadelphia area, and it's really a lot of a lot of references to the historic aspect of Philadelphia, and then a lot of reference just to the big boldness of the beer. So as you can see, kind of a breakdown of for Victory, it's all about continuing the story. It's not so much of a gimmick or a spin. It's just how do we get in touch with the consumer, where they they'll buy a 4-pack, 16-ounce 4-pack in the grocery store, and they finish it, and instead of moving on to the new next cool IPA, they're going to want to come back into the stores and buy some more Liberty Bell Ringer. So it really is that immersion of the brand story for Liberty Bell Ringer. And kind of what I broke out here is kind of all the references that you kind of see on this label. You'll see the stars in the background, alluding to, we have the Betsy Ross House here in Philadelphia, and, making the first American flag, the stars and stripes. The Liberty Bell Ringer in its name in itself, it pertains to what the 76ers do, is they have these celebrities at the beginning of each game ring the bell to commence the game. So that was we've had this Liberty Bell Ringer name before the 76ers started this. So it's just a great relation back into what currently is happening in the Philadelphia 76ers world. The ABV is 8.7, and that was a reference to the year 1787 when the United States Constitution was signed. So again, a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of immersion into the graphics, and then you kind of see kind of how Jack was talking about. I love traditional tattoo styling, so I definitely wanted to do this illustration as a homage to that as well. And bringing in the stake was a perfect way to do that, wrapped around the Liberty Bell, and the snake is disjointed, and that kind of references back to Ben Franklin's illustration he did in paper to kind of unite the 13 colonies. So another reference into that. And then we have the Liberty Bell upside down as a vessel, as a pint glass. And then we have these, these lightning bolts coming out from the snake's mouth. That alludes to Ben Franklin's, electricity experiment, and also, that bite of a hop, since it is a big bad bold IPA, double dry hop, double IPA.
I love that. I feel like, every time you would look at this can, you would find something new and be like, oh, like, look at that. It's just really, I don't know. I think it's so visually interesting. And like, I think a lot of consumers appreciate that more than they realize they do.
Yeah. And a little, something else for this label, we have a really big V, and my idea for this specific program is to break out that V and try and really own that letter for the Victory brand. something that's, as a secondary mark to the brand as a whole, and how we can utilize that. And of course, it just makes it a little bit cleaner and allows a little bit more canvas to come through to create.
Cool. Yeah, it was really great to see that from both of you. I mean, it just goes to show like how everyone has their different process and different style, but at the end of the day, like each beer can is just so unique, and a lot more thought goes into it than like the average person would expect. So yeah, I think it's a good way to end our conversation. Thank you so much, guys. It was really interesting learning more about what you do, both at Victory and Sixpoint. And I really appreciate getting to talk with you both.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the time.
Yeah,
Thanks
guys,
so much.
This was awesome. I really appreciate you and Danielle. Amazing job leading the interview. I did have one other question for you guys. So obviously, you talked a little bit about the way that you think about the conceptual can designs, right? So especially talking about, Bobby, like the bell ringer and having all the Easter eggs. How much for you guys, do you use focus groups like other design, other CPG products would use to say like, yeah, we definitely would grab this off the shelf, or we wouldn't grab this off the shelf? Like, how much do you test the design, or is it really like, look, if the team at Victory or Sixpoint likes it, like this is the design we go with?
I can jump in on that one. Yeah, traditionally we hadn't used that, just from being, quite a small craft brewery. We didn't usually have that access, but we did recently get to do that. Like I think it was 2 years ago now, almost, when we did our most recent branding and refresh of our packaging. So that was, the external 6-packs I'm talking about here. Well, then also the cans themselves too. So that was obviously a really big moment for us to make sure we get it right. We've done some in the past where we didn't do any research and, didn't necessarily turn out as we'd hoped. So just part of the process. But this time we're like, okay, we need to make sure we do this. We have to make sure we have some outside people looking into this besides just our inner circle. So yeah, we used a research group to show the designs that we had. We did a small run where we did a couple different versions and actually sent them out into the market to get some feedback. It was probably the most scientific way we've gone about handling a refresh lately. So thankfully what we had shown, people really were into it. We got a lot of really valuable feedback. It's great to see that stuff in general as a designer. Cause like once you do everything, you're kind of in the back of the scene. So you don't really get to have the feedback from just an average person who's on the street, right. So that I think is super fun and important, just like a critique almost in a way. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I think for, to Jack's point, we utilized, some of these outside agencies to kind of do this market research, really just for brand hierarchy. However, when it comes to the individual brands and what they look like, we still get full creative control, and we still make the decisions when it comes to what the actual, artwork looks like.
Awesome. Well, guys, this was super interesting. Again, thank you for spending some time with Danielle and I for our first, in this series that we're running together. We really appreciate it. And everyone watching, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks.